Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Partnership Guys podcast. We are on season 2, episode 13. Thanks for listening. I'm here with Todd Leonardis, Stephen Snyder. I'm Rob Stoker. And today, episode 13, season 2, we're talking about when partners disagree and how we turn conflict into a positive, into a competitive advantage for us. For me, it's always, any kind of conflict. It's not a warning sign in a partnership. But poorly handled conflict is. And there's always going to be little conflicts and things like that. For me, one of the red flags that I talk about is in my great partnerships with so many great friends and you guys, when there is any kind of conflict, there's always a nice period afterwards. And and that nice period is like almost like too nice to each other, and you're like, we're good, we're just all good, and you don't have to be that nice to me. When I was going through the partnership with my neighbor, a huge red flag. There was no nice period. We would argue, and then it was like, all right, and then an hour later we'd be arguing again, and so we always say the best partnerships, learn how to use those disagreements to make decision making and partnership better. And I, so admire you two, so many decades of making your disagreements and turning them into how do you figure out how to turn it all into a positive and make yourselves better and your partnership better and your business better.
Yeah, really all starts with that mindset. I mean, you mentioned the learning, right? Is that conflicts are going to happen. We're going to disagree. That's just the natural state of humans. And so it's having that learning mindset, that curiosity to be able to understand what the conflict is and why you're having that conflict. It's super easy to fall into argumentation and to fall into a situation where that conflict just creates bitterness in the partnership. But if you come to those ideas with the learning mindset, it gives you an opportunity to be able to learn and find out a different way and maybe even a better way to do something. And that's why conflict can actually be a positive and not so much of a negative.
I totally agree. I mean, conflict is normal. Stephen, we've been partners for, we're getting closer to 3 decades, which I can't believe. And one day we'll tell everybody the story about what this was supposed to be and what it actually turned into. Conflict is perfectly normal. But different perspectives and opinions just naturally create tension. So you really just need to be okay with that and just learn how to be productive through this, because strong partnerships, they don't really fear the disagreements. Like I said, they use it as a building block to try to be better. And avoiding the conflict, it will create a underlying tone of hitting resentment with the fake happiness and harmony that you're putting out there. It's just people react to authenticity, and when somebody's not being authentic with you, it just discounting. All it does is exacerbate the problem, make it worse. So
erodes trust. Hiding that conflict and avoiding it erodes trust, and that all that does is hurt the partnership.
And quite honestly, if 2 partnerships actually agreed on everything, one of them is not necessary. You know what I mean? Want these other opinions, because it creates better decisions. So.
That's the key is you want to be different. You want to have different perspectives. You want to have different opinions. If you have the same opinions, what's the point? You're not just repeating what the other person would have said anyway and doing it is having that different. You guys are so different in so many ways. And that's why it works. That's why it really works, is because you've learned. Again, 3 decades. That's crazy that it's coming up on that. But you've learned how to play off each other's strengths, and it strengthens yourself, the business, your partnership, and all the people around you see it instantly. It's contagious, and it certainly rubbed off on me that you guys are very different, and you do. I know it. I've seen it. It's not like you agree on everything, but you handle it all in such a healthy way. It's been fun to be a part of it and fun to watch.
Conflicts can be a challenge because it exposes potential blind spots that I may have. And so when somebody comes to me with a different opinion or a different idea that I didn't see before, that's a blind spot for me. Right? That's something that I don't know. And some people can get very, especially when they're bringing ego into the conversation, can get very defensive and they can take offense at those kinds of things. But if you've really worked on building that trust and respect in your partnership, those are the things you want to hear. I don't want somebody to come up to me. I mean, it feels good. Somebody to come up to me and say, great job. You're doing the right thing. You made all the right decisions. I want somebody to come up and say, there's a better way to do this. We can be more efficient. We can make more money. We can be happier, whatever the case may be. And exposing those blind spots and giving me a different perspective allows me to have more fulfillment and more success in what I'm trying.
Yeah, some of it naturally, it gets personal. It's if you have an opinion and you have a strong opinion and somebody else who, you're close to and connected to tells you that they have a different opinion, it takes some looking inward and saying, I can either take that in or I can argue with it. I can defend my position to the end, or I can take in what they're saying and see how I can work through this in a positive way. And that's what you guys do. The goal isn't to win the argument. It's to get the best outcome possible. And you guys know that you handle that maturely. Bad partnership I had, we handled it so immaturely. It became where everything was winning an argument and nothing was solved. There was anything, if somebody was right in an argument, the conversation quickly changed to an argument a different argument that person felt they were right about. And it just was terrible and spiraled downhill really quickly. But in the great partnerships I've had, it's been the opposite. It's just been openness to listening and resolve conflict and address issues early and focus on the business problem, not on anything personal. So I'd love to hear more about how you guys do that so consistently.
Well, the crazy thing is that disagreement is typically the birthplace of great ideas, right? Because the back and forth. And I want Stephen's perspective. I want your perspective to challenge mine. I don't know it all. Stephen and I started working together. We came from two different worlds. Stephen was in manufacturing and industrial space. I was in service and retail. So, things that I was used to in my industries weren't what Stephen was used to in his, and vice versa. So in the beginning, we definitely had conflict, meaning like, no, this is how we do it. I was like, well, why? Why do we do it that way? And because sometimes things are that's just the way it's done and it's been done. So I thought, I thought the value I could bring to the relationship was my retail experience, running a chain of stores, my service experience, running a couple contracting companies, because it is different. And I wanted to bring the touch and feel of service and customer appreciation into what was traditionally at that time a very rigid space, the industrial and manufacturing space, back when we first started doing this. So it was really rigid?
That what just happened?
Never. You would never do that.
No, sir. No. I would never.
Yeah,
disagreements is where the best ideas come from. So I mean you got to lean into it to a certain extent, as long as it's productive.
Your comment about asking why, right? I mean, that's like a 2-year-old mindset, right? You'd say something to a 2-year-old. Todd's got little kids now, so he knows that every time you say something, why? Well,
there's a lot of whys.
Why? Like, right. So you've got to have that patience, and that's how you can start to actually build that relationship with your partner by asking those why questions and not getting frustrated, right? Understanding that all they want to do is learn and understand better, so that they can do things better and better support what you're trying to do, right? It's not about a challenge. It's about learning, and it's about understanding. And so asking those why questions and not getting frustrated with those questions is the way that you can start to build that respect with each other in order to be able to have a healthy conflict in the partnership.
Yeah, because to me, when I'm going through something or trying to figure something out and I bring it to one of you or one of my other great partners, I don't want to just hear, yeah, that's right, or because it's almost like when I hear that, I'm like, you're not listening to me. You're not taking in what I'm saying. I'm asking you for, I want real feedback. I want real, what am I missing? How should I be looking at this differently? And that's why in great partnerships, not only am I looking for that, but I get that back. Sometimes I get that back to something that's really small. Oh, I never thought about that. I can add that, whatever it is. But, the openness that you guys have clearly, paved the way for is that you want to hear, I would maybe tweak this line or maybe think about that a little bit differently. And it's not dismissing those things. It's encouraging those things, embracing those things, loving those things, growing from those things, and everybody being better. And then it just feels good. It feels good to get it off. It feels good to receive it. And I can tell you when you have the opposite of that, it feels terrible in every way.
And I can tell you that you got to be willing to lean into that conflict, because as an example, Todd and I were in another business and one of the partners just wasn't pulling their weight. They just weren't doing what they needed to do. And we knew it. And all the partners knew it. But we didn't want to create conflict. It was a new kind of venture. We didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. And that ultimately led to basically the failure of the business. If we had leaned into that conflict and been given that partner the respect that he deserved, right? He didn't know that he wasn't doing well. He didn't know that he was hurting the business. If we had given him the respect that he deserved by letting him know in a good way, not in an aggressive way and not in a challenging way or an attacking way. But if we had done that, there's a good chance we would have been able to salvage that business. And so you've got to not just be willing to take that conflict in when somebody brings it to you, but you got to be able to bring that conflict and have those healthy conversations on the other side as well.
Yeah. And I would assume you would say that the earlier you did that, the better. And then it just would have gotten harder and harder and harder and harder. And that's why it was never done, because it doesn't get any easier. It's, it's get it early, and or else, it's going to be tough to get to it. That's what happened with me and my neighbor. It was just like small things that just kept building. And then by the time that, at least I realized that it was way too late. So this is great. Thank you guys. Todd, anything else?
I was just going to say, really, you don't want to make it personal. It's not a personal thing. You don't want to try to win. The goal isn't to win the argument. It's to improve the outcome. So if there is a conflict, and certainly unresolved conflict, it's the conflict is fine. It's the unresolved conflict that can really compound and start to degrade the entire relationship. Now, it's not about trying to win. It's about trying to make the outcome better.
Yep. It's easy to think that conflict will weaken your partnership, but in fact, it strengthens your partnership, especially if you do it really well. Because if one of my partners comes to me with a better idea on how to do something, and I'm willing to not bring ego into that conversation, I'm going to walk away from that if it in fact is a better way to do something, with an appreciation and a respect for that partner that they actually brought that to me. That's going to strengthen the partnership. I'm going to be more willing to listen to them going forward. And that's how you build a partnership. That's
great. Spot on for sure. Great. Well said. So partnerships, don't grow despite conflict. They grow through any kind of conflict and come through it stronger on the other side for not only the partnership, the business, but for the individual. So I really appreciate it. We could talk about this forever, and I can certainly talk about, conflict and the do's and don'ts of conflict resolution. And it's been great to be able to, tell my story of the great ways that I've gotten through conflicts with partners and different issues, and then obviously the one horrendous way to get through conflicts. It's been so great to talk to so many people about it. And thanks everybody for listening. You can listen to more on Spotify, Apple Music, watch us on YouTube, like us, follow us, get the word out, and let us know how we're doing and if there's anything you want to hear about. But thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.